What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday we did have Gamescom opening night live. Jeff Keighley had roughly 2 hours of game reveals, a podcast reveal, and a Pokemon car. We'll go over all of that stuff here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a Nintendo event that's scheduled for tomorrow that'll go more in depth with Nintendo's next big release, as well as a third-party game. And we'll also be talking about the PlayStation VR 2 as we have a rough idea as to when it's releasing. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Resident Evil 7. There's a video that was posted up on YouTube with Shinji Mikami talking about the past 25 years, kind of reflecting on his history with the series. And there was one thing in particular that was kind of interesting because it talked about, I guess, the time period when they were working up to Resident Evil 7 coming out. After 6, they seem to want to go back to the horror roots. However, one part of Capcom had a different idea. Go like full live service, the ongoing services with microtransactions. They're bringing up all this terminology that didn't necessarily fit in with that vision of Resident Evil being more back to roots with a horror game. And we can see this here transcribed by VGC, where Shinji Mikami talked about kind of their struggle against this part of Capcom, saying that, yeah, first we decided that Resident Evil's roots are in horror. We talked about it a lot. The idea of multiplayer got killed off pretty quickly. If we could properly put it together, we could make an exciting horror multiplayer game, but we didn't really have any good ideas, so we set it aside. Went down the list, chopping them out, until we had marketing's worst nightmare, a regular old single-player horror game. That's what we ended up with, and I mean, as pointed out here by VGC, I would say went on getting an 86 on Metacritic, doing really well with sales. That turned out to be the right decision here, and really Resident Evil is, I would say, on a great course, currently looking towards Resident Evil 4 Remake, but the series itself continues to sell well, and somewhere in an alternate universe, alternate reality, there's a live service version of Resident Evil 7, and I'm curious where the series would be today if that's the path they went with. Also, it looks like Multiversus had a very good launch. We can see this posted up by VentureBeat, where they say Warner Bros. Games announced today that Multiversus, the free-to-play platform fighter, has now surpassed over 20 million players since the open beta started on July 26th. The milestone follows the kickoff of Multiversus Season 1, which began August 15th with a new battle pass for players to earn in-game rewards. I will admit, when we first heard about Multiversus, there was a lot of skepticism around the idea, and then we see like LeBron James is in the game, and it was like, what is going on here? But seems like people are really enjoying this game. 20 million people already trying it out. And I know they're going to count people who maybe sign in once, try one game, and then never sign into it ever again. But the fact that they got them to download it and then also sign up, because you have to like sign up before you can even play it, is, I guess, enough for them to count it as a statistic. But hey, it's off and running currently. We'll see what other wacky and zany ideas they have, especially when it comes to characters being added into Multiversus, because it looks like right now WB is full speed ahead with this one. Oh, and a quick update to the story with Embracer Group, Aspire, and Saber with Knights of the Old Republic Remake. There was a lot of speculation that it went from Aspire to Saber, but we can see this, a follow-up from Jason Schreier and Bloomberg, saying the highly anticipated Star Wars KOTOR remake has been moved from Texas-based Aspire Media to a Saber interactive studio in Eastern Europe. Parent company Embracer hinted at the transition last week, and Bloomberg News can confirm it today. Now, Jason did also talk a bit about how much longer until this game could be ready. Says the game is at least 2 years away from completion. Says people familiar, that sounds about right. Some were wondering, oh, is it still on track for that 2022 release that Aspire apparently mentioned behind the scenes? No, it's almost September, and you feel like you'd want to market that a bit more, at least show some gameplay before you release the thing. But I'm curious, Saber Interactive, they should have a better chance at getting this right than Aspire, because apparently whatever they showed, Disney and Sony started just getting people fired, so we'll check back in on this one, I'm thinking a year or two from now. Although, I am curious what that demo looked like exactly that Aspire showed everyone. Who knows, maybe that'll leak out at some point online. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo event scheduled for tomorrow, that being a Treehouse presentation. We can see this posted up on Twitter. This from Nintendo of America, saying get ready for a Nintendo Treehouse live presentation on August 25th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time or 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, featuring 3 segments: a deep dive into the all-new Splatoon 3 single-player mode, stages and strategies for the Splatfest world premiere demo, and then world first gameplay for Harvestella. Now, I like the idea of them focusing in on Splatoon 3 single-player mode because it was a pretty small section of that Splatoon 3 Direct, which obviously was going to be multiplayer focused since that is the big selling point for Splatoon 3. It's something that makes the game relevant years later as they continue to add content to it and do the Splatfest and everything, so I understand why that would be a big focus. And here, they can kind of sit down, I assume, and just play some of the single-player mode. At least that's generally what happens at these Treehouse events. They'll just play the game for extended time periods there live, so that should be interesting to see that. And then, obviously, stages and strategies for the Splatfest that's coming up here in a couple of days. Makes sense that they want to go over that. The one that seemed to surprise a lot of people is Harvestella. I will say, it does feel kind of out of place. It's like, all right, we're going to go from Splatoon 3, a third-person multiplayer shooter, and we're going to move over to Square Enix's version of Rune Factory, essentially. Now, I don't think it's too surprising to see a third-party game get put in there, considering it is a game that Nintendo is, publishing alongside of Square. They have, timed exclusivity or whatever it is with it, right? They've done this before. Last time, they did it incorrectly. Because if you remember, they did the Paper Mario, Treehouse, and they were like, we're gonna have a game announcement. We're gonna show a game for the first time after that. And everyone thought it was anything other than Bakugan. And hey, I told people, prepare for disappointment. And then Bakugan showed up. So I gave people fair warning there. At least in this case, they are announcing it ahead of time. It's a game we already know about with Harvestella. It was shown at that third-party or partner showcase Direct. And sure, I think it looks interesting enough. And in this case, they'll be able to sit down at the Treehouse and just kind of play through parts of it. And while I am interested in what else they have to say about Splatoon 3, particularly on the single-player side of things, we just have to play it now. And we will be doing that in a couple of days here with the Splatfest. So looking forward to what they have for us at the Treehouse with Splatoon 3 and Harvestella. Next up, let's talk about Gamescom opening night live. It ran about 2 hours, as I mentioned, and there were a lot of games there. There are a bunch of reveals. I think there was over 30 titles that were at least mentioned at some point during this show. So I'm gonna have to move pretty quickly here. It ended a little while ago, and I went through and took as many notes as I could. All the different games that were just being rapid fired at one point were very hard to keep up with. But some games they spent quite a bit of time with. Others were 10 or 20-second spots in the whole thing. But we'll start at the top here with Everywhere. Now, they were trying to explain what this was, and they did, I think, a pretty poor job of that. But according to their press release, say it seamlessly blends gameplay, adventure, creativity, and discovery in an all-new multi-world gaming experience that redefines how players connect with one another and the digital world around them. So I guess we'll find out more about this as we go along. Dune Awakening. This was shown, and it was really exciting until, for me anyway, they revealed it's a survival MMO. But hey, for Dune fans, you're probably pretty excited to see what looks like, anyway, a larger budget title. The DualSense Edge. This is interesting because it's a premium controller from Sony. It's highly customizable, and I think I'm going to do a separate video on this controller because we had more details put out there by Sony when it comes to the different features of the controller itself. But look at this as, I would say, a competitor to Xbox, what they do with their Elite series controllers. We had the Callisto Protocol. The gameplay looks great. I'm just ready to pick this game up in December at this point. Don't really need to see any more. The Lords of the Fallen. This is a follow-up to Lords of the Fallen. I think this is 2014. People have been looking forward to something else here for a while, so it's good to see at least that pop up. Moving Out 2, that is coming in 2023. We saw another trailer for Hogwarts Legacy. Again, that's coming out February 10th, 2023. Looks like they tried to show off more of the dark arts and I guess how you will, have a morale system, either be good or bad or anything depending on which side you lean into here when it comes to the magic or the arts or anything. But either way, I think it, again, looked good. New Tales from the Borderlands is coming out October 21st. We had Dying Light 2 DLC, that's Bloody Ties, coming out October 13th. Showed a game called Tortuga, that's a ship strategy game. Then we had Marauders, that's early access, October 22nd. Destiny 2, getting a new expansion, that's Lightfall. Sonic Frontiers, this, once again, as we've gone along, has been the weirdest marketing I've seen for a game, like of this size, right, this scale. It's Sonic. It looked good. Every time they've shown a new trailer, since that original, like, IGN first, it's looked better and better and better. They did kind of like a story trailer here. It looks like they showed Amy, just kind of a flash of her being in the game. But we got the release date, November 8th, as expected, because it was leaked out. Same day as Skull and Bones, so I don't know how Sonic stands a chance here. Sega may want to reconsider that release date. Anyway, we did have Under the Waves, then Goat Simulator 3. We had Return to Monkey Island. That is coming out September 19th. They even had like a pre-order bonus, which is Horse Armor, obviously, which is a kind of a prod at the old days of downloadable content. It doesn't do anything. Apparently just sits in your inventory. Moonbreaker. There's a sci-fi turn-based strategy RPG. Kind of leans into the minifigures, so you can collect them and then you can paint them. And anyway, there is early access starting September 29th. We had Friends vs. Friends. It's like a card-equipped first-person shooter game. Lies of P. It's a full gameplay trailer coming to Xbox Game Pass day one, that being in 2023. And I gotta say, this looked really good. This is one of the better showings for Gamescom opening night live. I am really interested in this title. It reminds me like kind of like a Bloodborne or a Souls experience that's mixed with like the story of Pinocchio. So, hey, the art style was cool. The action looked good. Really, really interested in this one. Stranded Alien Dawn. Then we had Atlas Fallen. It's an action RPG with legendary creatures. That could be pretty cool, depending on how much they lean into that and what kind of legendary creatures they're talking about, being 2023. Homeworld 3. Jeff Keighley asked how many people remember Homeworld, and about 2 people in the audience cheered. It's coming out 2023. Genshin Impact is getting an update. Then we had Star Rail. I think it's Honkai Star Rail. We'll see about that one. High on Life. They showed a boss fight. The gameplay looked pretty basic, and I think it's clear that they are really hoping the commentary and the dialogue carries this game, but some of it felt overdone. It was fourth wall breaking, and that kind of got I'd say a bit of a chuckle there. It's, of course, coming out in December. It got delayed a couple of months. Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's coming out September 20th. The Expanse. It's a Telltale game. Summer 2023. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game. This one was kind of out of left field, early 2023. Scars Above. It's coming soon. It's a sci-fi adventure game. We had Wyro Song. It's an RPG. They just showed the title. It's a new studio called Something Wicked Games. Age of Empires 4 is getting its anniversary update. That's October 25th. Gotham Knights got moved up a couple of days to October 21st. It's interesting for the release date getting moved up. Don't really know what that's about, unless they were planning an edition that was going to release it then anyway, like one of the big premium digital deluxe editions, and they were like, you know what? We're not going to do that. Let's just move it up to that date. We have Where Winds Meet. That's an open-world action RPG. Hideo Kojima made an appearance to announce his new podcast for Spotify, which, all right, then. It's going to be available in English as well. Look, I'm sure the podcast would be very interesting with Hideo Kojima and different guests kind of talking about the industry and maybe even gaming news. Who knows? But what a weird section to have during Gamescom. All right. Anyway, then we had Park Beyond. They showed off a Pokemon Mini Cooper for some reason. That's what I wrote down on my notes for some reason. Warhammer Dark Tide still looks really good. It's coming to PC first, then I guess Xbox later on. It was originally announced for both, then it got a delay on Xbox indefinitely, but PC's coming up here soon. Blacktail, that's available this winter. Then we had Phantom Hellcat. Then Crossfire X made an appearance with an update August 23rd. We'll see about that. Dwarf Romantic, that heads to Switch September 29th. Outlast Trials, it's hyper-violent as expected. The closed beta will start October 28th, run till November 1st. And we have the finals. It's a shooter game show. There's a Steam playtest signups open. So there you go. It didn't really show much of that, just kind of gave us the premise. And then they did close out with Dead Island 2. This was leaked previously. We knew this was happening, but I will say it's what I was expecting from a new Dead Island, and we'll see how this one turns out when it comes to bugs or glitches, because that's kind of what doomed Saints Row, which, keep in mind, Saints Row also from Deep Silver, and yeah, that's it's unfortunate because that did shake some confidence, I would say, in some of their releases. But from what they show with Dead Island 2, they showed Jacob. He's one of the 6 playable characters. over-the-top violent. There's blood splashing everywhere. They actually had to censor some of the stuff when they were showcasing it during the event. It's been in development at Dambuster for 4 years now. Action RPG as expected. Very melee-driven combat. There's actually kind of an emphasis on ammo scarcity, which would make sense in a zombie apocalypse. You feel like you would start to run low on ammo and maybe cherish it a bit more. Coming out February 3rd, 2023, as we had seen it listed on Amazon. Overall, I would say the event was okay. The thing with this event here at Gamescom, it's always been like that. You have E3 up here, and then like Gamescom is like C-tier E3, right? There was nothing hard hitting, I feel like here, nothing that was really making people jump out of their seats when it comes to new announcements. I'm sure some people were excited that, yeah, Sonic Frontiers is coming out in November, or look, Lies of P is coming to Game Pass, and here's some gameplay for it. And that's all great, but the biggest thing is getting those surprise reveals and announcement. And yeah, I would say Gamescom was missing those impactful reveals. But for being a show that really gave us a look at 30 some odd titles, it dragged its spots, but at least it did fulfill, well, that promise. Just showing off a bunch of games, kind of just scattershot all over the place. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation VR 2. We've been getting like little bits of news kind of drip fed to us from Sony, whether it's different features like being able to see through like the headset using the cameras on the outside to kind of mark up your room, and occasionally showing off a game here or there. But now we have a bit of a release window. We can see this posted up over on PlayStation UK, which different regions just started posting up this message randomly throughout the last 24 hours or so, simply saying, coming early 2023. There's the PlayStation VR 2 headset and logo. And yeah, it's been a weird run-up for this headset. I mean, we're just missing the price and the official locked-in release date. This is what's been expected for a little while now, after we did get some leaks and information around the production of the headset, and we've basically been predicting, okay, Q1 of next year. And that seems to be where this is falling, but that sort of tells me if they want to launch it early 2023, they probably need to do something here soon to show off more games. And yeah, that would come back to that PlayStation Showcase that is currently rumored for like, what, the second week of September or something. It kind of makes sense. Sony has been a bit quiet recently over the last couple of months, and seems like this would be a good time to get people talking about PlayStation again when it comes to their first-party lineup and studios. We have, obviously, Last of Us coming up here pretty soon, and then we'll have God of War Ragnarok a bit later on in the year in November, but kind of setting up 2023, especially when it comes to this headset that, let's be real, is probably going to cost $500 minimum. You at least want to start showing off some of the games you'll be able to play on the headset. But I'm at least looking forward to new hardware from Sony. We see this PSVR 2 headset coming up and that DualSense Edge. So exciting stuff here when it comes to the hardware side of Sony. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, give Gamescom opening night a grade. 51% said C, and then the next one was 17% at B, which there were like 30 some odd games shown, so most likely there's 1, 2, even 3 games you looked at and said, hey, this looked all right. And for a lot of people, that'll come in at a nice like C, or it was fine, I guess. And that's the big question here is, are these presentations like this too long? 2 hours? Like, there were definitely parts where it was just dragging along, right? And I wondered, well, would it have been better if there were just less games and maybe just an hour? Maybe there were 2 nights. Maybe you have, instead of one big open night live, maybe you have presentations done each night of Gamescom, and it's just a bit shorter, a bit smaller, and you kind of know what you're tuning in for. They can have headline titles. That's the thing with 2 hours, some fatigue sets in there, and that's probably why you see Nintendo Directs be 30 or 40 minutes long, or even Sony come out and say it's like 45 minutes to an hour maybe for their big presentations. Sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours, it just goes a bit too far. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mash saying, aren't every console taking a cut for physicals too? The cost to make the physical, which is the same as putting on the digital store. So Ubisoft actually let us in on the different cuts here and the splits overall. So with physical games they were shipping out, selling, they got back 55%. With digital copies, they got 70%. So if you're a business or publisher, developer, which side are you going to go with? You're going to go with digital. That's what you want everything to go. And in fact, it's not even a surprise that a lot of these publishers are looking at the streaming side of things, because then they can just go right around the box that is a requirement, which for some, a pretty large barrier to get through to get to that game. So if they can just have you stream it in your web browser, even better for them, they can reach more people. So the thing when it comes to the physical side, there are more stops along the way that'll take cuts from that game. So even like retailers, when I would order a game, like a big release coming out, Call of Duty, Madden, any of those, right? It costs about $51 for me to order it. So you can see right there, I mean, $9 coming off the top for the retailer, but I'd also have to do things like pay for shipping and all of this. So really, for most retailers, they don't make much money at all on the new games. They're looking for trade-ins or really just traffic. That's what these new games are being used for currently, is just get people in the door. So yeah, it's no wonder that a lot of these big publishers are pushing heavily for an all-digital future. It just makes them more money. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was Nintendo's Treehouse Live, happening tomorrow. Are you looking forward to seeing more Splatoon 3 and then maybe even playing it over the weekend? And then also, what about Gamescom opening night live? What'd you think of the event and what were your favorite announcements? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.